that the start, like you just started in the middle of him doing.
It's Friday night. Welcome to Friday Night Cast.
Hey, that's my job.
Sorry. You're slacking.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on. I got a 1, 2, 3 go. So yeah. Hey everyone. Are we actually live?
Yes.
No, we didn't say 1, 2, 3.
I hope so, because I just did that whole thing.
I feel like 3/4 of our stream recently have started this way. No, yes. Hello everyone. Welcome to Friday Night Cast. We're excited to be here and to hang out with you tonight. And we will not be playing any games tonight, but mostly talking about one that we just played. So we are a group, we are a community of applied, spiritual, and therapeutic tabletop gamers who use and explore the benefits of tabletop gaming in our work. We're excited to have you here and joining us tonight as we talk a little bit about our game that we just played, which we like to call the Yalecapdes, but we've been playing Kids on Brooms here. And yeah, we're excited to share. We're going to talk a little bit about our game. So let me jump into that a little bit. The purpose is to demonstrate the therapeutic and spiritual applications of role-playing games for professionals to utilize for their own clients, to highlight how practice among professional builds experience and education, to explore a variety of role-playing games that can be used for multiple psychological and spiritual issues and benefit. You can watch us play these games every Friday night here on Twitch. Engage in meaningful check-in and check-out around these games, and a final debrief at the end of our sessions, which is what we will be doing tonight. This final debrief tonight will include discussion around intentional use and possibly an appearance from game designers when we can get them on. We love having the game designers on between this show and our Gaze of Our Lives show, to talk with them about their game and game design and things around that. We did reach out to one of the game designers of Kids on Brooms, but unfortunately could not get them to join us due to a conflict tonight. So hopefully in the future, we'll try and work that out. So yes, we're so excited to have you here with us. If you've missed any of our sessions and want to catch up, or if you are listening to our discussion tonight of this game and you're like, wow, that sounds really interesting, I want to check it out more, all the videos you can replay on YouTube. Search CASTT Gamers, CASTT. Did I do that right?
Mm-hmm.
T. There's a double T on the cast there. I think I'm gonna start saying double T. It sounds cooler, and TT has poor implications, I think, if I say it that way. So cast with a double T at the end. I don't know if that's any better. I'm working on it still. So CASTT Gamers, check us out there. And there is a playlist. You can watch the Kids on Brooms videos beginning to end through the playlist. So yeah, we had a lot of fun playing. I had a lot of fun running it. I hope you enjoy and check it out. While you're there, give us a subscribe, a follow, a like. All of those things helps us out as we try and get our videos and our content out there to more people who may be using it. So let's do a couple of announcements. Tim, are you doing the announcements again tonight?
Of course.
All right.
I realized feel weird if I didn't.
Yeah, I know. I realized we didn't check in beforehand to make sure you were doing that tonight. So yeah, Tim, take it away.
So on the 13th, which is this Sunday, the Gaze of Our Lives crew will be playing Exodus, a belonging outside belonging game by Finding Roots, and inspired by Ezra Furman's album Transgelic Exodus. It's a story of angels on the road making community as they go and trying to find somewhere better. It's a game rooted in time, an autobiography, and a plan and a dream, and a fear all in one. On the 24th, we will have Tabletop Transformations. Join Menachem and Tanya for their for the next episode of Tabletop Transformations. And Menachem, would you like to give us a little pitch about what that is?
Sure. As Dustin was saying, we're here to find ways we can use role-playing games to help the people we serve. And my work is spiritual direction. I help people in their spiritual questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What am I here to do? And what's my relationship with the divine or the universe or the force? And so we're doing a show where we're going to talk about the ways to use games to help with those spiritual questions. We're going to play a bunch of games monthly and as much as often with the creators and discuss how can we use these games for the work we're doing. We're going to start by playing Dream Chaser with its creator, Pete Petrusha, on the 24th. I am so excited because much of my work is in the adaptation. Pete brought me on to adapt that game for therapists and spiritual director who whatnot to adapt and to use one-on-one and 1 hour sessions. So we'll be talking about Dream Chaser and playing a condensed version with its creator, Pete Petrusha. You can find him at imagininggames.com if you want to look him up now.
Awesome. And stay tuned for some more announcement we have. I do believe the next game that everyone will be playing is Wander Home. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then we have some more announcements that will be coming down the road. Hopefully in another month or so, we'll be announcing some of those. Some new games coming up and maybe some new content as well. That's all I have.
Yeah, so we'll be off next week. Did you say that, Tim?
I did not.
Okay, I was reading something and spaced out for a minute, so I didn't want to repeat if you did. But yes, we will be off next week, the 18th of February. A little break in between our sessions, and we'll be back on the 25th to play some Wander Home. So we're super excited about that. Laura, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do we want to make an announcement? I heard some dates were actually released for a thing.
Yeah. I am not prepared for this, but okay. We just announced Geek
Go on.
Therapy is running tags again this year. It is a Geek Therapy solo joint, but everyone is welcome. Tags is the Therapeutic and Applied Geeking Gaming Summit, and last year was a blast. We had some great panels and discussion and made some good friends and some new people in our server. If you're interested, the dates for tags this year are June 10th through the 12th. And we have not set up a system for accepting panels ideas yet, but you can sign up for our mailing list at tags, TAGG. Well, it's taggsummit.org. So tagsummit.org.
Double G's.
I'm excited.
There's like a
Double G's, double T's.
double T's,
G's.
double G's.
Double T.
Now we said the double T thing and I started going like TI double gutter like Tigger.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
So we got to come up with something like that.
Yeah.
Wonderful thing.
I don't know what any of that is, but sure.
It's
Let's
a
do it.
wonderful thing.
That's how Tigger spells his
It's Tigger.
name.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The wonderful
okay.
thing about Tiggers is Tiggles are a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Scott. I love it so much.
Caps are
Dustin,
made
did you
out
not
of
have a childhood?
rubber.
Bottoms are made out of springs.
They bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce.
This
my
is
God.
beautiful.
Fancy,
I'm-
fun.
I'm bringing this into Wander Home.
I was just gonna say, yeah, this is great. I love it.
If you
Oh.
want more nonsensical fun and travel like this, join us for Wander Home. There we
Mhm.
go. I'm going to
There we
segue
go.
now back over. And if you're interested in seeing what we're up to, check out our Willow link. Do we have that down below now, Kayla?
Yeah, it's in the chat. It's in our about page, but it's also in their chat.
In the chat and on our about page as well here on Twitch. So yes, check that out of how to get in touch with us if you're interested. And if you're a helping professional interested in joining the Cast Gamer Discord to engage in more discussions and all fun things around tabletop gaming and using it intentionally, you can find the Discord invite form on the Willow, right? The link tree Willow.
Yeah, in the link, yeah.
I
No, it just
know
dropped.
technology, as we've established with my
Yeah.
Teenage Nightmare character. I am super well established in social media, so I know exactly what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Just TikTok.
TikTok? We have a TikTok now?
No.
No, no.
I have an Instagram. I use
Don't
that
put
sometimes.
don't put ideas into Timothy's head.
Mm-mm.
He's already asked about a TikTok.
Oh, I want to see a Calvin TikTok page. I wanna know
Please
what
stop.
Calvin's TikTok
Please
looks
Stop.
like.
Please.
I
Oh
might
my
have to
God.
do that.
No, next in a year.
In a year. All right.
Technically, in what, like 6
I'm
months?
gonna have to grow my hair out.
Oh God. Okay. Moving on.
All right, moving on. And also just a quick shout out to I mentioned earlier, the game designers of Kids on Brooms. We wouldn't be able to have this fun that we have. And as much discussion, I don't think people realize how much some of the players here in this game have talked about their characters. It's kind of a lot. So we've really enjoyed this world and this game. It really allows for this great narrative storytelling and collaborative world building as well. So check out Kids on Brooms. You can check out the other games in the system, Kids on Bikes, Teens in Space as well, if Magical School is not your jam. And shout out to the designers, Jonathan Gilmore, Doug Lewandowski, and Spencer Stark as well. So yes.
Happy birthday, Doug.
Yes, happy
Doug's
birthday.
birthday?
Doug.
See,
Happy
the other
birthday.
day.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Should we sing him happy birthday?
Well, no wonder
No,
he couldn't
no.
come.
No.
That was a joke.
That went
No.
so well last time we did it.
I was about to start.
I think we can
Yes.
pass on that.
So yeah, so let's jump into our discussion and recap. And we have a number of things that we want to talk about and go over. So do we want to do a full summary of kind of what happened for everybody, or do we want to jump into it here? Or
I would like Dustin, as the GM, to give us a full review
jeez.
of what happened. A very brief full
Is this
review.
nobody told me
of
there was going to
12
be a
sessions.
test? Nobody told
Brief
me there was going to
of
be a test.
every episode.
You
Just
tested
an
us every week.
overarching
This is
12
your
sessions.
test.
What did we do?
Major arcs.
Just the major arcs. That's right. Thank you, Manako.
No pressure.
I don't even remember where it started.
Well,
We went to
began
Yale.
At
when I
Yale.
was
So
a
we went to
young
Yale.
man.
Magical history class. That's where
Yeah.
it's ordered.
Great. Thank you so much. Feel free to interrupt me if I skip things or miss things and get me back on track here. So we started after some character introductions and some world building. I had added in a few of my own questions to hit on some of the themes I wanted to go over, and we'll talk about that in our debrief here. And then we started in Magical Yale. With the secret societies, which held the magic school within the College of Yale in the city of New Haven, Connecticut. And we opened up in the beginning with magical history and all of the students in there, one of the required classes for all incoming freshmen. Learning a bit about the world, the magic, and what to expect, and all of our cast members here chose a secret society to join to start the year off at Yale. A number of people choosing Wolf's Head, a couple by surprise for me. One member joining Skull and Bones, one joining Scroll and Key, one joining Book and Snake, and nobody joining Manuscript, as was a surprise to me. And turns out people didn't really end up liking Manuscript anyway. So yeah. And then from there, we kind of moved into this Halloween party at Yale, where ritual was happening as part of this Halloween party every year at the Manuscript Secret Society. This ritual was to draw the magical energy from the the illusion, the costumes, the anticipation, the emotions that run wild in a party sometimes.
They're vampires.
In this
Energy
kind of
vampires.
energy vampires, in a sort. I mean, they weren't taking it from anybody, but it was more just kind of the energy in the air. The loud music, the dancing, the pheromones, all of that great stuff. Asking someone to go home with you, thinking about it, should I, shouldn't I, posting on Craigslist later about a missed connection at a party, all of those things. But down in the basement of Manuscript, there was a ritual happening to store up this energy. A couple of members made their way down to this part, met Professor Zell, who was in the process of overseeing this, and another character known as the Captain later showed up, siphoning some of the energy away, causing the magic to kind of go haywire, and causing the party to end a bit early. One of our members of our team decided to knock out one of the Professor Zell with a well-placed punch, and one other of our party members decided to make him forget everything that happened for about the last 10 minutes by pouring a potion down his throat.
Just to skip ahead and then come back, is Zell the one that I ultimately killed?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow, that dude just, I made him up.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know what you had against
You
him,
messed
but
him up.
Mm-hmm.
Right
I don't
from
know.
the beginning.
We'll have to work that into the character in the future. Go on.
The captain then teleported out of this area. Jelly had followed them and ended up in a room where there was no magic, or magic could not be used on campus. There was a conversation and he was eventually able to escape. Then there was a few episodes that went into something that I really wanted to, is kind of slice of life feeling. We went to Shake Shack, or Shaky Shack, as Calvin likes to call it. We saw a rugby game. There was some magical broom riding together, learning a bit more about the magic and all of that of our game. Then we came to a point where there was a ritual at Skull and Bones, and a divination ritual to find out kind of what was going on as a result of the captain's actions, and trying to get more ideas of how to maybe prevent this, the loss of magic to the wellspring of Yale. Lexa, being a member of Skull and Bones, was there, and her father, who is also a former member of Skull and Bones, came and helped perform the ritual, as he is a strong magic caster. Asked to meet up with Lexa and gave very little details. And Lexa met up with the rest of the crew and told them what happened. There was a premonition of a tower falling. You all explored Harkness Tower, only to realize that it was a metaphorical tower, not the literal tower that was going to fall, kind of giving this ominous feeling that something was going to happen. You eventually went out to meet up with Mr. Thrugood?
Trugood.
Trugood. I don't think we gave him a first name, so I'm calling him Mr. Trugood.
He doesn't have a first name yet.
Yeah. It's just yes, father, or Mr. Trugood. And at which point we went out to past Dick Rock, to the island that, very important. We spent a lot of time talking about that. I thought we should, that it was actually on the map. And there was an island off the coast of Connecticut, that your father had bought a house on. The house and the island, very kind of posh place, with its own gardens and everything. While they're meeting with your dad, he asked you a favor to find an item for him before anybody else did, as it was important. Upon leaving, Lexa stole back took back, you didn't steal it, you said, I'll take this. Took back the Gamore that had been used to keep track of the true or pure and casting bloodlines, as you had left that behind. There was an attack by what we later found out is a leech, knocking Lexa unconscious and stealing a memory from Roberts. After ultimately causing the leech to flee and some expert broom riding by Riley to get Lexa out safely, everybody recapped back in the dorms, and Roberts headed to see the captain. The captain explained his plan to Roberts and eventually the team of people who went to go visit, that he planned to take down these, well, I guess in the captain's words would probably be something along these pompous assholes, and redistribute the magic and try and help more people, as he doesn't believe that the people at Yale and many people who control the magical power should be the only ones deciding who gets to use it and who gets to benefit from it. Calvin performed a ritual and a potion to help Lexa remember and hopefully not lose any memories. And the team helped her. Eventually, she awoke. There was a brief moment that Riley and Lexa had together, and a kiss was shared. And then more than that was shared, explaining some of the things that Lexa had done and some of the things she wasn't really proud about, but had to share with Riley, of basically taking people's blood and lying about it to people, or not sharing, kind of doing it against their will, potentially. There was much discussion on this. Calvin wasn't sure what to do. Kind of stumbled in the middle of the conversation.
Always at the
And
perfect time.
what's that?
Always at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Calvin with that timing.
Impeccable timing, and no knocking also, or the knock and walk in, like not waiting for a response.
I do knock.
So after some discussion, the group, realizing the next day the captain was going to make their move, decided to see what they could do to help, potentially staying on the sidelines, but also worried about their new friend Roberts. And he was basically going to be bait and potentially sacrificing himself for the cause. There was a fight. We'll kind of jump ahead a little bit. Some preparation, a bit of a fight at the classroom, the classrooms for the magical studies on campus. Roberts headbutted one of the professors as they were chained up, magically chained up, basically, knocking them unconscious and basically killing them as you rolled very highly. And then you were kind of thrown into the no magic room to be met with some leeches who were presumably going to take away all your memories of magic. The rest of the team kind of caught up. The captain also teleported into this room, as was part of the plan. Roberts was tossed during the fight. The captain was able to remove or suggestively coerce with a special item he had found a couple of the professors to get rid of their protection runes that were keeping them safe from being attacked by the leeches. And Eliza had a struggle with one of the other professors, ending with a sword being after a tumble, piercing through one of the professors after another very high roll as a result of that struggle. Everyone managed to escape this. The captain kind of finished up to what you're not sure here, and had you all take Roberts away to safety, giving you some encouragement that you are able to build whatever you want afterwards. And you all Jelly teleported everybody out with a portal back to the dorm room, and that was pretty much where we ended, I believe. So, yes. Was there anything else? I know there was a lot.
I think things will come up as we as we go through.
And there's a lot of details in between, and we'll talk about some of those as they come up.
Like, I think we're going to learn about Tennille's makeup and outfit as we go through the Union.
Yeah, there were a number of transformations and transitions, we could say, as we played, which was one of our themes that I wanted to start with. And I'm looking forward to hearing about that from you all. But as we do with yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of changes and transformations, we're going to introduce our characters now. And instead of doing the usual name ritual, because we're not entering the magic circle of play, we're going to introduce ourselves and say, hi, I'm player, and I play character name. And then and then insert something your character enjoys or loves or appreciates, or a new fear, a change, new fear, motivation, flaw, skill, something, a small thing changed by your character, like, they can stay in one sentence. So Tim, don't go first.
How about I go first as the GM? Hi, I am Dustin, and I play the game master, who has really enjoyed thinking a lot about this world and building it and seeing what everybody has decided to go with their characters as a result. Oh, we're doing this. Okay.
Well, we were clapping for you.
That was us applauding you.
Oh, okay.
That's how you applaud in sign language.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Like,
learned something today.
Imagine if you couldn't hear and everyone was doing
This
this.
looks like,
versus
yeah.
this, a whole audience of people doing this looks really cool.
It does.
Call on somebody, Dustin.
Oh, I'm going to call on someone. I'm going to go over to Kayla.
All right. Hi, I am Kayla, and I play Alexa Trugood. And Alexa likes Riley and has the new fear of leeches. And I'm going to call on Lara.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
That's the perfect fear, though. I love it. So relatable.
Whew. I'm Lara. Wow, water. I've been talking all week about this game multiple times. I'm Lara, and I play Riley, who likes Alexa, but her flaw was timid. No longer timid. Very suspicious, though. That's the closest thing I could come up with. I think suspicious, distrustful. Yeah.
Don't be suspicious.
Don't be suspicious.
think-
All of y'all are so sus. That's
I think
what's
Riley
going
has
on.
every reason to be
Sus of everybody now.
Riley, trust but verify.
Exactly. I'm gonna call on Tim because you talked.
I feel like I always do. Hi, I'm Tim, and I play Calvin, who is a wreck. Calvin went through a lot of stuff this season, and I think Calvin had gained a new flaw of being impulsive. Because Calvin has been super impulsive all season. So yeah, that's where Calvin is. I'm going to call on Eliza Tennille.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tennille. I play Eliza Goldenflower. And similar to her bestie, Eliza is suspicious, but she is suspicious of all teachers and professors now. So that is her new flaw. And I will call on Scott.
So I'm Scott. I play Humperdinck Roberts. And I mean, boy, so Roberts' new challenge, I guess. I know that wasn't an option, but it's kind of glaring. Is he's differently abled now after this accident. We saw that briefly at the end of the last session where he wasn't able to stand. Yeah, maybe we'll kind of circle back and talk more about that later in the evening. Menachem.
Good choice, since I'm the only one left. So I am Menachem, and I have been playing Tristan, also known as Billy or the Jalentar, but is becoming Tristan, and who is coming out of his awkward reclusive shell. And I don't know what replacing it with. We'll talk about it maybe as the evening goes on.
I like it.
That's the
All right.
character introduction.
Yes. Thank you, Minako, for that. Do we want to do some brief epilogues as well from where we left people? Do we want to go in the same order that we just had, just to keep it simple? So I guess I will skip right now. I think I may be involved with some other character epilogues. But yeah, so Kayla, I'll start with you.
Okay. Remind me again what time period we're epiloguing.
What did
Up until
Was
winter
it to winter break?
I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a month.
So that's a
month.
month. Yeah.
The end of the semester, maybe the
Right.
very beginning of the next one.
Because
Okay.
we left off like with the end of our gameplay around like the beginning to middle of November.
Okay. So up to winter break. Okay. So Lexa, man. So Lexa has formed a new bond with Roberts, and has spent probably every day making sure that she checks on Roberts, and not just like his physical well-being, but also checking in about what she is referring to as the dark place, and trying to get him to talk to her about it, because she feels like she can't talk to anyone else about it. And Roberts is currently the only person that she has shared that the leeches terrify her. She has also spent numerous hours attempting to write a letter to Riley, and has unsuccessfully found a way to put all the words down. And still has dinner on Monday nights with Tristan, and has brought Calvin along because she feels like Calvin needs to like get his shit together. So the three best friends are starting to have weekly dinners. And
I have a modification on that, but I can wait till my turn.
Okay, that's fine. Oh yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Yeah, that's fine. You can add that. So that's what she's basically been doing, and playing rugby and going to classes. But Lexa is not attending her secret society meetings. She is very distrustful of Skull and Bones, but she is trying to embrace the divination stuff and the dreams in an effort because she thinks that it might help her with, she thinks it might help her understand the dark place. She also has had conversations with Eliza about the Riley's page, and has expressed deep concerns about the notes that were left on that page. And leading up to winter break, she received a aggressive summons to return home. To what end? I have no idea. But she did return home and had a conversation with her dad. I just don't know what.
Can I add to that for a
You
minute? Because I'm
certainly can.
realizing one epilogue piece that I wanted to put in here that was possibly going to be in the end of one of our play.
Mhm.
I feel so bad because I feel like I'm going to mess with you right now, and I'm not actually running the game. We see a kind of cutscene of your dad at his study at home, after you receive that letter, that summons to return home. And there is the Grimoire by his side.
Stop it. Shut up.
And if you go home, do you go home to meet with him on this break?
Oh, I did not go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't give you the original of the Grimoire. He wouldn't be that stupid.
Great.
You had a copy of it
Great.
because he wanted to see what your intentions were with it.
Great. Well, how does he know I burned it? Guess we'll have to tune in.
We're gonna have to
Tune
Next
in to find
season.
out.
Way to find out.
Oh God, I'm gonna be so anxious now.
Oh, that ties into my epilogue pretty
Yeah,
well.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So for Riley's epilogue, she's like, after all this goes down from our season, lots of like moping, lying in bed, crying. She hasn't called her mom. She usually talks to her mom and her dad like all the time. So we see her on the phone with her mom, crying, like making up some kind of story to make it make sense to mom, but like saying like, I love her and I don't know what to do with that. Eliza comes in the middle of that conversation. The two of them have a conversation about what happened, kind of process things. There's more crying, more admissions of love. Riley spends a lot of time in class trying to focus on class. There's like angry and sad and like longing looks at Lexa because Lexa's in all of Riley's classes. But she's really trying to focus on studying and trying to figure out what the hell is going on with the spirits and what happened in the graveyard. We see many scenes of her picking up her phone to text Lexa, looking at it, putting it back down. Maybe she even walks down the hall, tries to lifts her hand up to knock on the door, and then turns around and walks back to her room. Closer to break, she finally gets the courage to send a text to Lexa after making a realization and sends, I may be angry, but I still care about you. I don't know what you're doing for break, but be careful if you go home. One of my non-corporeal friends gave me a message before everything went down that I needed to help you and not to trust your dad. He's more dangerous than even you'd expect. And then another text after that. I don't want to be in a world that you're not. Stay safe.
Stop it. I can't handle this. I don't know what we've done.
I don't know what we've done either.
I mean, Lexa probably did respond to that. I'm sure I'll figure out what that response was, but
Well,
yeah. Now it's on to you, Tim. Unless Dustin's gonna screw with mine too. Good.
Got plenty of time to screw with you all again a bit more.
so
like all this epilogues giving him ideas.
Mhm.
You're giving it to me. It's y'all's
Doing the
material.
fire for next season. I'll give them some cannon fodder too, so don't worry. So Calvin has had a complicated year. He finds out his familiar, who is a girl that he was in love with in high school, has been able to transform back into a human who was in hiding because well, the families, Calvin's family and Lexa's family and a few other families had tried to kill our friend Tristan, and tried to probably kill Lashes, who we're just going by for now. And I hit her as a familiar, and now as a person again, which is complicated because I'm in a relationship with Eliza, which also made it complicated because Eliza was okay with me dating another woman. And for Calvin, this is just strange. Living in a strange world with strange, non-magical enclosure of his home. Calvin has experienced a bunch of things through the year, and he is finally like, okay, I got to try to like blend in with these non-magical people and understand like what this is. And I think he focuses on trying to learn how to control his transformation. For one, that's like the start of it. Him trying to like blend in is trying to learn how to control this and control his emotions, which usually trigger the transformation. And since there were so many emotions going on through the year, it was hard for him to not just turn into a were-raccoon. And I think with all these emotions, trying to control them, he's also spent a bunch of time trying to like text not Lexa, Riley, and apologize, but doesn't know how to because Calvin's not the best in social situations. And I feel like Calvin has spent many a nights like writing the super long text that probably makes sense to him and then reads it to himself again and then says, maybe I shouldn't send this, delete, the whole thing goes delete, rewrite it. Delete, rewrite. I think this is like a every other night thing. And then finally sends a message to Riley that is, so when are we gonna start Dungeons and Quagmires?
That's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Riley's more pissed at you.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I mean, a lot has happened, and I think Calvin is just going through a lot of emotions right now and trying to figure out who he is.
Okay. So, yeah, so Eliza has a conversation with Riley, while she was talking to her mom, and they processed a lot of things, betrayal, spirit powers, lots of things that needed to go on. So it was a good conversation. And then probably a few days later, she speaks to Lexa, and she has a lot of questions about that book. And so she asks her questions and learns about this mystery with Riley's heritage. And And she explains what happened with the breakup, because apparently Lexa didn't know a lot. So she's hoping that it can kind of clear some things up, because there's definitely been some tension between Lexa and Eliza throughout the season. And she's felt it. She just hasn't addressed it until now. And so after that conversation, she'll definitely have one with Riley about, like there's some issue like with your family, and we need to see if there's a way that we can investigate that or work on that. And that there could be some concern there. And then she has a conversation with Roberts. And she does set the boundary on the sexual jokes. So she's like, hey, I'm okay with you like telling sexual jokes in general, but just like not about me, and that sort of thing. And she offers to be his wing woman for when he's ready for a healthy relationship. And she actually will give him references for some books on learning about relationships. I don't know if he'll read it or not, but
Oh my God.
she's been doing a lot of work on that, especially like identifying that she's polyamory and all of that. So, and they will definitely talk about their, trauma a little bit. I think Roberts will probably share more than Eliza will. She will admit to him that she is going to therapy. And also Riley knows that she's going to therapy as well. So there are a lot of things that she's working on. She gets herself a nose piercing. She starts wearing some dark makeup, exploring some things. She starts to, like, her connection with it, for those that go to class with her, can see that she's no longer flattering the teachers anymore. She's no more like giving them compliments or anything like that. And, just focusing, she's still very much interested in the academics, interested in learning and everything. But she's suspicious of the teachers. So she's not like giving them her all. So I would say in the beginning of Yale, her work towards like academics, probably like 120%. And now it's like 99. She's still doing what she needs to do, but it's not like she's not going as much of that extra mile, because she's really seeing there's not as much benefit to it, and she doesn't really need to do that. So she's still going by. When it comes to like studying and things like that, she's actually doing her best to get outside. She'll go into the library, get the books that she needs, and then she'll be out. She doesn't want to spend a lot of time in the library. She wants to study by a tree, study on the grass, study at a bench, anywhere that's not inside, where it, I don't know, it just kind of feels more stifling to her now. And she spends a lot of time with her snake. Her snake Churro, and likes to walk around campus with the snake around her neck. And her wardrobe's definitely changed a little bit. So, but yeah, she's looking forward to that. I would say there definitely are some unanswered questions between Calvin and Eliza. And Eliza's made attempts to try to have those conversations, and they just haven't been able to land on any specific answer. So it's more like an ongoing, like checking in on certain things, but there's still no specific answers for that. And she's still very curious about those gems. Yeah. And that's where things are with Eliza.
You're muted.
I've had a lot of time to reflect. But I didn't write notes like the rest of you because
I didn't.
I didn't write notes either.
I'm not a game master. I don't have notes. That's for Sunday. When I run Quagmires and Dungeons. So Roberts shows up to class on Monday, much to everyone's surprise. Except he shows up to class in a wheelchair with Shadow, his what are they called?
Familiar.
Familiar. Yeah, with Shadow just like curled up on his lap.
Can Shanks be on your lap too?
I mean, he keeps trying to like push everything off his lap, and the cats just keep crawling back. He's like, motherfucker. But yeah, Lexa and Eliza have taken to kind of like helping him get around. I don't know if this is true, but when Tennille and I were talking, we decided that there were at least some buildings at Yale that were not handicap accessible. And so Roberts has kind of like started noticing around town, like where he can go and where he can't go and how frustrating that is. He was already a terrible broomstick rider. He sells off his broomstick because he has no need for it, or maybe he just gives it away, and is pretty dependent on others. And it's interesting because he's used to just doing everything for himself, and so he's struggles a lot with needing help and asking for help, and getting used to that. We see him in session after session of physical therapy. And weirdly, we see him showing up for every single class actually prepared, and spending time in the library, and asking lots of questions about magical healing. And meanwhile, he's going out of he's going to, does Yale have a hospital associated with it, Dustin?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's seeing specialists at Yale about he sees neurologists and he sees orthopedists and trying to find out what's wrong and why it is that he's lost the use of his legs. Eliza is like really encouraging in terms of like getting Roberts to kind of think more expansively about intimacy, because he's a guy that just is pretty much interested in sex and not emotional intimacy. And with him not being able to use everything from the navel down, there's all kinds of challenges that come along with that. And so Robert seems pretty despondent when he and Jelly go out for drinks later in the week. Roberts has far more than he should, and it's pretty awkward and uncomfortable for Jelly, especially when Robert starts hitting on him. But yeah, Roberts is in a very weird headspace, and he talks with with Eliza about the trauma of having to take a life, which Roberts will kind of discuss his experiences with that, while he well, he served with the captain previously, because Professor Zell was not the first person that he had killed. But it's much like Lexa, Roberts really struggles with his experience with the leeches. And Roberts also starts calling his mother on Sundays regularly. And Lexa and Eliza actually meet her when she flies out to see him and to help him kind of set up in a new space. He has to sell his condo and move to like a first floor apartment that's customized so that he can access the space.
Where wheelchair accessible.
Yeah. Where counters are like, where like the counter is lower, and
handrails in the bathroom.
Handrails in the bathroom. Yeah. So it's a much kind of different. Gone is the sleek, modern, sparse kind of Roberts. He's actually kind of frumpy now. Like he used to just wear all black and it was all like very polished and poised, and yeah, and he's got a much different energy. He seems very focused on trying to get better. Menachem.
Okay. So back in the before times, before Lexa's father and others had me killed and went after Lashes, was Calvin, Lexa, Tristan, and whatever Lash's name was then, who were inseparable, right? And I had this relationship with Lashes that was non-romantic, non-sexual, very intimate. We just always snuggle on the couch. We'd always end up in a snuggle. We'd walk across campus holding hands, while at the same time, Calvin and Lashes were in love, right? So, and it was all copacetic with everybody. And maybe partly why they tried to set Lashes and Tristan up for a marriage, because they misunderstood what was the signals they were seeing. And we're still not sure why they had me killed, what we refused to do. I think Lashes and Tristan refused to do something that was bigger than get married. So, but anyway, now that Lashes is back, and I've seen her because I'd heard she was back maybe, but didn't really believe it. But now Lashes and I have that relationship again. Combined with Lexa's bringing me food and slowly coaxing me out of my shell, Tristan has really kind of come out of his shell a lot and is not so reclusive and not as awkward publicly, and has that relationship again. And so the dinners now on Monday night are the four of us again. And in fact, since Tristan is essentially a non-traditional student, because he's 25 years old, he's lived 25 years, even though he was only gone for a year, he's a non-traditional student. So he has bought, or maybe Lashes too, because it's unclear. She's not really a student as far as we can tell, but we have bought a medium-sized Victorian, 4 or 5 bedrooms just off campus. I've moved my trailer over to that property, and it's kind of like become a hangout for the crew whenever they want to come over. And we've probably actually put in a ramp, right? Because Roberts and I continue to have drinks together, and I'm definitely interested in friendship, but I'm not interested in any sort of romantic or sexual relationship. But I will, piggyback parkour you if you're up for it, right? Whatever. So I'm very, whatever. My point is, I'm very physically there and connected, but definitely not interested in a relationship in that regards. I'm hoping Riley still can trust me and I can be someone solid for Riley from the old school kind of grouped and give you some sort of, I don't know, solidity and connection with that crew.
I think that tracks.
Because I didn't know what was going on.
Maybe some like he could have said something, but like you didn't lie. So yeah.
I didn't know what they were doing until I found out after I got back.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
So the only other thing I can think of is a couple of my academic articles dropped because it takes a while for academic articles to get published. This is actually pretty fast. And I've also, right at the end of our break, my society sent me on a speaking tour of high schools to recruitment, because that was one of the things they wanted me to help bring back the energy to my house, to my society. And I had a lot of fun with that. First I might do it through a portal that looked like it was just like a video conferencing portal, but then I would like jump through and parkour onto the stage. And I did like 6 schools in 2 or 3 days to just go and talk about and give a lecture and try and recruit people into what's the name of my house again? Society.
Scroll and Key.
Scroll and Key.
Yes.
And that was right, because our break is a little longer than high school breaks. So it was right at the beginning of their breaks and at the end of our break. I think that's all that's for the month and a half or so we had.
Can we never quite got a chance to do a scene with you trying to get in touch with your dad. And I'd like to, at least very briefly, play that out if you'd like, or at least because it it may be a little bit of a hook for our next game when we pick it up as well. Would Riley be helping with this also? We had talked about that.
Riley would actually Riley would definitely would be welcoming a distraction.
Okay. So I imagine maybe at the house that you purchased, the trailer, where do you think you would do it? Maybe in the trailer where you feel like it has connection to your dad or something? Like where would you try?
If that makes the most sense, right?
Okay. And remind me, there was, I think when we played previously, there was like an item that you enchanted to like help guide you. It was like your dad's compass, like drawing compass.
My
or
dad's
something,
the circle compass. Yeah.
Yes. Great. So after a little bit of research and trying to come up with some ideas of what to do, how to maybe contact Riley, I think that you have come up with this idea that you need something important connected to Jelly's dad, and as well as to Jelly. It needs to be in a familiar space, so you decide on the trailer, and you're going to need water as well as a medium to help pass through, basically, more or less to pass between realms, as you've been learning as well, right? Mm-hmm. Water is a great medium for that. So we see a pool of water, and the familiar marigolds and burning herbs to help contact the spirit to help you as well. The compass is laying and floating in this pool of water. And you summon upon this spirit who has helped you and you've been in contact with, to try and help locate Jelly's father, or Tristan's dad. They tell you that they should be able to find them where they are, with what you've been able to provide, and with the ritual that you set up. A little bit of time passes, and as the two of you sit there, not sure if this is working or what's happening, as it's just kind of, that space where you're just kind of looking at each other, looking at the pool of water. There is this sudden warmth and energy of your dad that you feel, Jelly, and this kind of glowing shape forms, and the both of you here with this manifestation. Hello, son. I've been watching when I can, and it's hard to pass between these worlds. I'm still learning in this new form. There's many mysteries to magic we've never realized.
Dad, where are you?
It's been a little bit, but I'm still figuring that out. There's dimensions, separate ones we never could have imagined.
Well, that makes sense now, given that the wasteland exists.
Exactly. It's hard for me to come between the worlds and communicate, but I've been watching and I'm proud of the person you're becoming. Is it Jelly now?
They've been calling me Jelly, but I'm starting to go back to Tristan.
I always did like that name, but
Gave it to me.
You're old enough to choose. I, look forward to the man you're becoming. I'm glad to see you're making new friends, and kind of this figure nods to Riley.
Riley's a good one.
Thanks, Tristan.
All right, I'm going to find you.
I hope you will. I'm trying to, but my resources here are limited.
What can you tell me about how to find you? What can you send me an anchor? What can you do something?
I don't know, but keep studying. I know that if you keep studying, you've got my blood in your veins. I imagine you'll be a great traveler one day. I hope that your gift will far exceed my own one day.
Getting you back, Dad.
I look forward to it. I'm glad that you're okay.
I'm glad that you're relatively okay.
It's the least I could do to make sure that, well, when I heard what they wanted to do to you, what they planned to do to you because you disagreed with them.
You did pull me out.
Yes. I had to act when they wouldn't suspect it, and I got shunted someplace else to put you someplace safe. I was able to pull you back, but I kind of got lost myself, so.
My studies are all dedicated to figuring this out.
I look forward to talking again, but I fear we don't have much more time right now.
I'll try and call you next week.
I love you, Tristan.
Love you, Dad.
And then the energy kind of fades and dissipates, and the nice glowing warmth that kind of filled this space fades.
Give Riley a big hug.
Riley will hug you back and say, I'm glad you got to talk to him. We'll find him.
Thanks.
And so you get the sense from this, he's not dead. It's just he's lost somewhere, basically. With kind of limited resources, maybe limited magic, to be able to find his way back to where you are now.
So one idea I had related to this is, given that I have charm, the protection charm from one of the professors.
Yes.
and Riley knows charms. I want to think what part of my research is going to be fashioning something to protect ourselves, whoever goes with me, if anyone goes with me, so we don't get affected by the time looping and the time dilation or whatever in the other dimensions. So I build a charm to protect us when we go find my dad, whoever goes with me.
Yeah, and we'll see. We'll have to pick that up and see what happens next time we play. So a couple things I want to add as kind of world building bits is first the captain leaves after everything goes down the end of our last episode there. As he kind of promised, he leaves and is not really seen again around campus. I guess one of the questions is, does Roberts keep in touch or try and reach out to him, or?
Yeah, for Roberts, the captain still represents a significant like paternal stand-in. And so that's a relationship that he would very much invest in maintaining, even if it's remote.
Okay.
So
yeah, and it's probably like, I imagine like texts or phone calls or something like that that you would be able to use. The other thing that happens is there's a lot of talk around campus about one of the professors being murdered. One of them. And there are interviews with police at different points. There's a paper or an article in the paper that the only thing that they found any evidence was some footprints that led into the wall, and they couldn't figure out what exactly happened. It seemed like there was some sort of blunt force trauma. But like there's talks about like around campus, like, was it a ghost? Like, what happened exactly? Like, how did the footprints just disappear into the wall? Yeah, so there's a lot of unanswered questions around that, and investigation ongoing around what happened to Professor Zell. In the magical societies, you know that there are 4 professors missing now after this. Professor Zell, we know, there's been investigations around his death. Oh shoot, where are my notes from? Oh, there we go. Nobody is sure what has happened to Professor Gilnack. He has not been seen at all. And Professor Belafonte and Professor Odessa seem to have retired from the school on short notice. And nobody really knows why. So there's a lot of rumors going on. Things are very kind of, I don't know, they're informal, like the class structure and everything has been shaken up as far as magical studies go. The secret societies, as some of these professors that, well, Professor Zell, who had died, and he was the head of manuscript. None of you are in manuscript, so you don't know exactly what's kind of going on inside manuscript. Professor Belafonte, who was the head of Skull and Bones, perhaps, Lexa, why nobody seems to really be giving you a hard time about missing so much is that there's nobody really in charge right now of Skull and Bones. At least, for a little bit, there's kind of a little bit of a opening there. And Odessa, who was the head of Wolf's Head as well, has retired abruptly. So there's kind of some lack of leadership there. My question to everybody is like, what happens with that lack of leadership within the school and the societies? Like, what does that look like, do you think? How does that change?
Wasn't my society kind of down before,
Yeah,
right?
not a lot of
So
people
maybe
wanted to
they get,
join. You probably had the least number of members. They also seem to like not be giving Scroll and Key as much access to the magical wellspring as some of the other societies too.
so Scroll and Key is one of the few that has an intact leader. Well, right. So they take a little more leadership,
Okay.
or
And
they
I
have
think
more
that
of
ties in well to what you're saying about like recruitment and things like that,
Mhm.
that you've helped out with that.
Feel like um I feel like Calvin feels a little more at ease because of how things have changed on campus, right? Where all that like pressure of like they're going to take your magic away and all that stuff like feels not as prevalent as it did when Calvin first well when we all first appeared at Yale. So I feel like some of that pressure has been relieved, at least on the students who are on the magical side. Like it's not as stern of like, you know, there's a rumor that they're gonna take your magic away, because yes, that was a thing. And I'm sure people are talking about it a little more now. Um, However that happens, I don't know.
I want to say, in tying in with that too, that I feel like there's a lot of like there's more camaraderie about like, okay, like let's just help each other out.
Yeah.
Like we've all like there's a lot going on, like we don't need to like not to say rivals among the societies and stuff, but there's less there's a little more sharing of information and resources between, so like I imagine like lessening that stress or that anxiety around like what are the consequences going to be, and it's more
Yeah. If I mess up, am I gonna take are they gonna take my magic away? You know, that was a big thing for Calvin. So yeah, I imagine there were other students that felt that way as well when they
Mhm.
first came to Yale.
yeah.
You know, I'd like to imagine that New Haven becomes a much more interesting place in which to live, because along with like that increased sense of community and that decrease of threat, there also is, you know, probably more people that are going to take risks and be less subtle because there aren't the same kind of repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
So weird things probably happen around New Haven.
There's more discussion of weird things, maybe like more ghost sightings or more like large animal sighting, or like bobcat sightings or something like that in the city, right? Like this is like, so that yeah, these kind of fringy almost supernatural things, there's
And
more
yeah,
discussion of.
I would imagine that New Haven starts developing a really strong like occult community among the normies, the non-magical folk, um, as they start becoming aware of the weirdness as well.
Calvin found out the hard way that they don't like to be called stuff like that.
That what?
Calvin found out the hard way that they don't like to be called stuff like that.
Well, I'm trying not to use any copywritten terms, but yeah, I'd like to imagine that
I'm having this fantastic idea that I might have to rope into when we play next, of that there's some sort of occult or ghost hunting society or group or something that's like tracking some of these things now. Perhaps that will come into play.
I would also add that, like for Roberts, none of that matters because he didn't care over much about any of this, the secret societies anyways. But I do have to wonder, like, does everyone just get a pass for the rest of the semester?
I think, yeah, I think there's this more building of community and less of like competition and grading, right? As a result of, there's some lack of teachers also. So some teachers are doing double duty with doing multiple classes that they weren't originally doing. And it's more just about the experience and the learning than like doing it right and, grading and, the risk of being kicked out if you're a failure, things like that, right? So I'm kind of picturing it's changed as we're talking about it in those ways, if people agree with that or they think that's reasonable.
That's good.
All right, so let's jump into I'm sorry, before I do that, did anyone want to add anything else as like any of our kind of wrap up epilogue from everything? I think that's quite a bit.
This is
so.
great.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's set up things nicely for year 2. So
Yeah, it's as you all were talking, like I was getting some ideas of things that could come in. I had a couple already. We're gonna have to explore that dark place at some point too. There's something in there for those of you that experience that dark place as well. But stay tuned. You have to wait a little while. So we have a bunch of stuff to go into, and I'm kind of looking at the time now, and I'm worried about our time frame for everything. I know I had a couple of things that I wanted to touch on briefly as the GM, and then I wanted to kick things over to everybody else to be able to share with. And I had talked about some debrief questions, although I'm worried about how long this is going to take going through all these questions with each character. So
I don't think
can
we
we
have to go through each question.
Okay. So real quick, yeah, let's take a look at this real quick, and maybe if there's one that jumps out to you for your character, or if there's like, they kind of toy together a little bit, feel free to talk about them for your character, and maybe what you've noticed. So to give a quick background is I was actually looking at like a handout that like I was putting away off of my desk at work like a week or two ago. And I saw these questions and I was like, oh, these would be kind of interesting as like end of the season debrief questions. And consequently, this kind of has a little bit to do with like, these questions are kind of rooted in reality therapy in some ways also. And kind of looking at ourselves and looking at our actions and our goals and what we're doing to get there, basically, right? And kind of taking away from labels and putting them on ourselves and what we can do. So the questions are, who am I? So how do you picture yourself in this moment? So kind of as we're ending with these characters, who am I? Why am I? What in my life has brought me to this very place, thought, or feeling? So what have you learned? What have you been learning? What have you been challenged, or what has been challenging? What have you learned? Where do I go from here? So what new energy might emerge in me? What aspects of myself do I want to nurture and grow? So where do I go and how do I get there? So what steps can you take? What or who will help you get to where you want to go?
Clarify, are we asking characters or players?
It's
So this
characters.
would be looking at your characters, yes.
Yeah. We're still in the character section.
Yes.
Can we
That's me.
say what this moment, when is this moment?
So this is, yeah, right. So like where do you picture yourself in this moment? I'm going to say it's the end of the semester. Just kind of wrapping up on that epilogue and everything. Like, where do you picture yourself kind of at the end of this, basically? Or if there's like a natural endpoint for you that makes sense, wherever that is for that character. So Kayla, I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah. So I was gonna answer, where do I go from here and how do I get there? Because I think my epilogue kind of says, I think our epilogues kind of covered the who am I and why am I, at least for Lexa. So I'm gonna answer. Lexa's gonna answer, where do I go from here and how do I get there? Lexa is committed to holding herself accountable, and in that sense, that looks like being intentional with how she chooses to repair the harm with Riley. And so one of those things is letter writing, but also there's a long list of things that Lex is going to try. And Lexa is also quite prepared to position herself in a way that puts her in direct opposition to her with her family, if it comes to that, if that's what it takes. So yeah, I think who and what will help me. I think for sure the four friends, so Tristan and Kelvin and Lashes, are very much so supporting that.
All right.
It's interesting looking at this. I was like, I don't know how Riley would answer any of it, right? Riley's been very lost. And has had a lot of things come crashing down. But I think the where do I go from here is like being open to things being different, being open to, I'm a new person and I know how to do things now. So kind of nurturing some growth and like, I am capable, and that I can let myself be a little open to like Lexa's attempts at repair. And the people who support her in that, like Eliza and her have already had a conversation about like how to do those things. So I think trusting in Tristan and Eliza mostly, I think those are the things that'll take Riley forward. That leaves you, Tim.
So, who is Calvin? I think that is Calvin's theme for the whole the whole semester. Even now at the end is, I think Calvin has the freedom to grow and become whoever Calvin's going to be, and out from under the wing of the family. So now it's like Calvin doesn't know who Calvin is, and Calvin's trying to learn. And to the why I am, what has been challenging is relationships. Relationships are hard. I feel like finally Lexa Tristan and Lashes have had the chance to just be themselves again and like together. And that hasn't been the case almost all year. And I think it feels good. But it's been challenging for the whole semester to like be Calvin. And what has Calvin learned? Shouldn't keep secrets from his friends. I think that's what Calvin has learned. And I'm going to leave it there so I don't go on through all the questions.
Who's next? Is it me?
Yes.
Yes, it is me. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to be very brief with my answers. And I guess people will take that as they will. Who am I? Who's Eliza? Bits of energy and a soul. Why am I? For the purpose to unearth mysteries and right wrongs. What has been challenging? Those that oppose me. What have I learned? To question authority. Where do I go from here? I go to investigate, to observe, to explore. What new energy might emerge in me? To be bold, to be authentic. What aspects of myself do I want to nurture and grow my identity? And how do I get there? What steps do I take? I experiment. I make mistakes. I learn. And that's it.
So I think I'm going to kind of, rather than try to answer it all, glom onto one particular thing, which is, I think the who am I? I mean, this is an age, I think, college, right, where like a lot of people experience a profound amount of growth. And for Roberts, like it wasn't that generated anything significant, not because of age, but because like of what was motivating him to be there. I think it's being forced to connect with these people that are outside of who he would normally associate with, caused him to start experiencing some kind of growth outside of this very callous person. And then obviously like physical trauma and having to start being more reliant suddenly really forces him to change. So I think the who am I for Roberts is very much in flux. And I'm excited to play to find out how he changes. But I think I've already kind of like started him down that path. And I think his relationship like with Calvin specifically just embodies that of like starting with this like very kind of like brushing him off and ignoring him and taunting him to actually like using all of his magic to protect him at the end, you know? So the who am I is a very interesting question because Roberts is going from this very callous and different person to someone who is willing to be a little bit more vulnerable. Menachem.
In the before times, Tristan was cocky, and that cocky has grown into confidence and owning of self. And I also think I'm kind of the solidity and the glue between everybody. Because I even with Eliza, I was pissed at her about coming around recognizing the trauma, her wasteland that she's going through. Right. So even there I have empathy. So I feel like I'm like a center neutral, not neutral, a good relationship with everybody else in the group. over time.
All right, so let's kind of check out of these characters and get into some more discussion from the player perspective, and let's kind of bid these characters a little bit of a goodbye, see you later, as we kind of look at leaving them for right now, where we will pick them up in the future again to play with these characters, these avatars, if you will, at a future point. So how did everyone want to do this?
We
see
can just go in our order.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, me.
I think there would be value in what a thing we usually don't do, which is maybe use as the player saying something to your character, some kind of farewell.
Do we
Yeah,
want
I
to do
can-
the thing where we something that we've enjoyed about them, or something that we'll miss about them as we leave? Okay. Well, actually, I'm gonna go first. Lexa.
ahead.
I'm looking at your screen with your name Lexa up still, Kayla. As the GM, I'm gonna miss. I don't want to say I'm gonna miss thinking about it, because I'm probably gonna still think about this game quite a bit. But I'm gonna miss coming up with ways to just twist things and keep kind of upping that suspense or tension with everybody, as I won't be running a game until we come back to this again. But I will also be happy for a little bit of a break from it. So
Mm-hmm. I am going to just, yeah, I've had a lot of fun. So I'm just going to, in general, miss Alexa and her growth and what she's moving through and how that is just impacting her character. I don't want to be in a world where Alexa and Riley don't exist. So there's that.
We're gonna have to write some books or something.
Yeah.
It's all you, Lara.
I mean, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, this has been, as we're going to talk about very soon, like mind-blowing, life-changing. And so I am going to miss Riley, although Riley lives rent-free in my head at all times.
Mine too. Mine
And
too.
by default, then Lexa as well. So, and this is not a goodbye. We're coming back to this. So this has been a blast, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, I hope to see everyone at the Shaky Shack soon.
Hell yeah.
oh
That's what
man,
I'm
I want to
gonna
go to
say.
Shake Shack with all of y'all right now.
I've never been to one, so
Oh,
I
they're so
would
good.
love to.
Anything.
It's insanely good.
Their
So
French
good.
fries are really
In
good.
my head, the Shaky Shack is the best place ever.
I've never been to one
No.
either, so we got to go someday.
Listen, a smash
Will
burger
happen.
is a delightful thing, which is what they make at Shake Shack.
So, I guess that is my
it.
statement. I will say is,
Beautiful.
I'll see you soon at the Shaky Shack.
Say that
All
10
right.
times fast.
So I think I actually do have a couple of quotes that I want to say to Eliza. But before that, I guess I'll say that what I miss with Eliza is just the different relationship dynamics that she has with everybody. And I'll miss kind of feeling the emotions that she has as well, which are really enjoyable. So the two quotes that I want to say to Eliza is, sometimes when you're overwhelmed by a situation, when you're in the darkest of darkness, that's when your priorities are reordered. And the second one is, our anxiety does not come from thinking about the future, but from wanting to control it. That's all I'll say for that.
Oh, so long, Roberts. You're an asshole. Happy to be rid of you for a few months. Oh my fucking god, this guy. That said, I enjoy his confidence and his bon vivance. I do not necessarily have that. I'm not going to go stripping off my shirt in the middle of Shake Shack. I do not have magic abs. No, it is. We'll talk about this later, but it's difficult to play Roberts for me. But there are many aspects of him that I admire or I've gotten to, and so it's fun watching him grow. So, but so long for now. All right, Menachem, you're up.
I really admire and respect Tristan's ability to dig in and do the work for his passion consistently and with lots of energy and effort. Like, I don't really appreciate the recklessness, but I really appreciate that he's so on task and he does the work he needs to do to get these things done. And so see you later, Tristan. Hope you can inspire me.
Right. Yeah. So I had a few questions I wanted to throw out there to everybody as I was kind of reflecting on our game. I want to just spend a brief moment before I kick it over to questions for everyone with talking a little bit about just some reflections that I've had on player consent and like as a GM and having that consent with your players. So this is a really interesting system in that like you kind of do collaborative story or world building at the beginning. And I generally try and integrate as much of that as possible in. And as we were playing at different points, like there's and some conversations came up around this, both I think probably on screen and off screen a little bit. As a GM, there's very much this, I'm the GM and I'm going to do it because I'm in charge, right? Like this is my game, this is my world, like this is how this is going to happen, this is how this is going to play out. And kind of like halfway through this game, I kind of thought and started to try and change that mindset a little bit, and more that, no, these are your characters. I shouldn't be the one that says this happens to your character. You should have some influence and say in it also. So I'd had many conversations on the side with people between sessions or things like that to try and get them involved. And I really tried to pivot. I think I could have done a little better in like our last scene where Tennille, your character, Eliza, you had made the decision to like put that sword up. And like, well, we talked about this earlier, like these things have consequences potentially, right? Roberts got attacked by a leech ultimately for his choices of punching a professor, and has lost a memory, which we haven't explored yet. But so there was like kind of a tussle there, and my immediate thought was like, with the way that we rolled, like, oh shit, like this guy's getting stabbed. But then I was like, no, wait, that's me deciding for you what happens in that situation where you should have the narrative control in it. And there's actually the rules in the game with the roles that, and I kind of forgot about this, I was reviewing it later, that when the character rolls higher than like the NPC, then that character gets narrative control over the situation and what happens. And I think I could have done that a little better. I corrected myself, I think, partway through. I realized I shouldn't have kind of like forced on you that you were gonna like stab and kill someone when maybe that wasn't your intent or what you didn't want for your character, right? And so those were some of the thoughts I was having on that. I had a game that I ran with some clients where I got X-carded because I had conceived of this scenario in a D&D game that there was they didn't speak the language of these people that they ran into. And because of it, it created conflict. And one person ended up, my original plan was not this, but kind of in the moment, one person attacked. And so there was more of them than there were of the player characters. So ultimately they got kind of tied up and brought to talk to somebody who could communicate with them, basically, to find out what was going on. Well, I had forcefully tied up and dragged my players through the woods, and that was not okay for one of my players. And so kind of as we're talking about consent, we can, I think as GMs, we can leave that up to the player to say, okay, like, you're going to be incapacitated. What does that look like? Like, that's the consequence for this, right? Not that there isn't consequence for things, but the players gets to decide what that looks like instead. So that we're not putting the players in a situation, A, of something they don't want to happen to their character, or B, something that could be triggering for the players also, potentially, right? Especially as we talk about police violence and things like that, that maybe some of our players, and who knows what else as far as trauma goes, may have experienced and may come up during play. So to me, that was very much in thinking about how do we create a safe environment, a safe world for people to play in, and thinking differently about the kind of player consent, and what that looks like, and GM consent also, right? Menachem, you said at some point, my dad is not dead. And I kind of had a thought maybe he was, but then, and I hadn't quite fleshed it out. But when you told me that, I was like, okay, you're telling me something you don't want for your character, and I can respect that, right?
I mean, especially in the work we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? We need to have players have that agency to do the therapeutic spiritual work that they're working on.
Yeah. Yeah. So
there's value to having things happen to you and you reacting, but some middle ground allows us to have the things we want to present come forward.
Yeah. Right. And this is play and exploration ultimately. So I think having trust in the players that they will do what's best for their character, because they're the ones playing that character, and you all know your characters better than I do, as you've spent probably more time in their head. And Laura, as you said, Riley lives rent free in your head all day, every day, basically, right? You know more about this character than I do. So really a lot of these things should be your choice. So just kind of an interesting thing and thinking about, and some reflections that I've had as far as consent goes, within the game. So I don't know if anyone wanted to add to that, or we can move on.
I just wanted to comment.
Go ahead, Neil.
I think that there's a lot of psychological safety here, like in this space. I feel it. I don't know that everybody else feels it, but I can talk about myself. And so with that situation, I knew that I could say to Dustin, I'm not okay with that. That's not all right, and he would roll with it. He would figure something out or whatever. But it all seemed to really tie into the change that Eliza was going through, the transition that she was going through. And now it like actually helps her to connect with Roberts in a different way too. So that was definitely something that I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I was like 100%, but I was like, yeah, let's try this and let's see where this goes.
One thing I would like to add is we are all human and we're going to make mistakes. During play, running a game, even if we are as mindful as we can, there are going to be times when we make a mistake. And making a mistake is okay. Learning how to adapt from that mistake and correct those mistakes is important though. So like talking about how Dustin learned like through his play, like, oh, like especially with the idea of like Menachem saying, I don't want my dad to die, like he's alive, and Dustin rolling with it. That's okay, like, and it's also okay to make a mistake and realize that you made that mistake, and then later on retcon it. That's okay. Like,
yeah,
there's no harm in it. We're playing a game. We're playing a game in a trying to play a game in a safe space. And if we make a mistake and we feel like we did, and we have a conversation about it and realize it is a mistake, change it. And that's okay too.
I think for a lot of folks, so I run games and I rarely play, and this has been the case probably for 15 years. And in my home gaming group, before I ever thought about approaching this therapeutically, there was always confrontation, contestation. It very much felt like a me versus them, as the storyteller to the characters, right? And so, when Dustin, you talked about giving us agency, I was surprised because I'm like, wait, I get to decide? That's exciting. And that's a much different feeling than I think a lot of people experience, especially if they're using canned adventures where so much is decided for you. But just generally because of that, I think because folks fall into that us versus them mentality, and people forget that this is a collaborative storytelling, especially when we're using this for personal growth. I think it's so important to have the ability to for players to have agency, and for that conversation to be a part of session 0 of kind of creating the world and discussing like how much agency folks want and need.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about also about like player agency of like, what are players comfortable with? I've had players be like, not, you can make all the decisions, that's fine. Like I'm not good at making decisions on the spot. But I think all of us here as players really enjoy that and like having that piece as well. Yeah, Scott, I remember at one point, I think when you were the like kind of coming clean moment for Roberts in like the cafe. And afterwards, you were like, I think I just like made stuff canon. I didn't check with Dustin first. And I was like, nope, it's fine. You said it. It's canon now. Like I gave you the pieces. You decided what happened with it at that point. And you and I were like kind of on the same idea as far as like how those things were going to work out and everything. So that was great. Like I love that when we're on the same page. But also it's cool for me as a GM to be like, oh, I never thought of it that way before. It's a really cool idea that they came up with. I'm going to roll with that now. Or sometimes when you say those things, you're like, oh, shoot, why did I say that out loud? Now Dustin just heard me. I was like, yep, I sure did. I'm just taking notes over here. Don't mind me. So yeah, it really creates, I think, a different play style sometimes too, when there's more of that collaboration and the players are given more agency as well. There's this conversation I had also about like talking about like kind of consent and everything of with a friend of mine, and he said, I think there might be something about this. I don't know if it was an article or something that he read, like, or it was in a book that he was talking about. So I apologize where this comes from. Maybe anybody knows it, but he said, send the ninjas out. Like the players don't have to do what you want them to do, but you can send trouble to find them. And that's what that's where the leech was born out of, basically, where this thing was going to come for you wherever you were. Basically, if you didn't go to the point where I wanted you to in that adventure at that time or whatever, we're going to up the stakes. We're going to send the ninjas out to find you, right? Like the bad guys can send bad guys out to interfere with whatever you're doing. Like it doesn't have to be, oh, you didn't come to the boss fight now, right? So yeah, that was kind of where that was born out of a little bit.
I'll start calling you Master Shredder.
So yeah, kind of an interesting way to think about like player agency and consent as well. I've really learned a lot and grown from this. I think the next game I would run with clients would be much different after this game that I've played with y'all.
The only thing I wanted to say is that when Kayla and I were on GT Radio talking about this game, I was singing your praises as the GM and us as a group because of the psychological safety. And we're about to get into some stuff where like I felt safe to work on a lot of my shit during this game. And we never clashed on any decisions or anything, but the fact that the option was there for me to say, nope, that's not happening to Riley, and you would be open to it, that made it so much easier to do. And the cat decides to make an appearance right as I'm talking. Thank you, Leia. But yeah, I think this group is something magical. Yeah.
Yes, I also agree with that it's magical, because again, like there's been a lot of things, like I plant a lot of seeds and just let you guys all put it together. Like I was kind of on a similar page as well. So I want to talk really briefly about kind of this idea that arose as we play of like the 12 session arc, and how we can apply that in work. At a certain point, I realized that we were basically on track for doing 12 sessions or close to it. And then, like, I think that's part of the reason for dividing the finale into 2 parts, because that would make us hit exactly 12 sessions. And I was like, I used to run outpatient groups. I work in an IOP and PHP setting right now, so it's a little different. But traditional, at least for substance abuse, outpatient treatment is 12 weeks of sessions. Um, and it can vary somewhat. But I guess, and so I think it's really interesting that you can kind of pick a theme, you could pick a game, pick a theme, and kind of go with 12 sessions around that and modify things as you go, maybe to hit on certain things. And maybe if there's something in particular that your clients are looking to work on, or whoever you're playing with is looking to work on. But I really set from the beginning, and some of the intro questions and the world building questions were around change, right? One that I think of is, name one tradition that you're going to bring with you and one that you're going to leave behind going to college, right? Some of these questions were very much around what's different for you, what transition or change are you making in this to start. So I guess my question for everybody is, and just people ask as you feel, did this 12, like, was this 12 arc, 12 sessions successful? Did we achieve kind of some of our goals, or some of this things that we set out to at the beginning? Kayla.
I mean, I think so. When I was running groups, I did 8, and I think I like the 12 sessions better, because it gives you just a little bit more time to maybe get just a little bit more character development in, and really touch on what each character might be going through. But my answer is yes.
Yeah, I think with like a group this size too, because it
Yeah.
gives some players a chance to be support in some episodes and some characters to be more front and center in other episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was successful, and it's interesting to think about it in this way, where Calvin didn't have much growth, right? But at the end, he saw that there was room for growth. So I think in that perspective of it is, yes, it did work. And then in the next 12 session arc, I think there is room for Calvin to grow. So yeah, and I think it was very successful, and for at least for my perspective of it.
Just in terms of timing, I think I've talked about this before. Like my specialization was group work in school, and I think a lot about the intentional structure of a group, your role as a facilitator when you're the game master, but then like the course of the development of the group, right? And I feel like with where we were and what in individually, with where we were in terms of like the group cohesion, the group kind of coming together and acting as like a unit. If we had ended earlier, if we had tried to get resolution quicker, it would have felt rushed, and I think termination, the end of the group, would have felt really forced. And it seemed like, not just from a storytelling perspective, but from like a group perspective, we still have more work to do, but we definitely completed like the cycle, and the timing was right.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, just in terms of like how we kind of like came together emotionally, and then how we ended. Does tonight, is tonight included in the 12 weeks?
No, this is this is episode 13.
Yeah.
But the like world building and character questions and relationship questions is.
So something like this might be done individually. I hope I'm not getting ahead. Something like this might be done individually with clients after the group had ended. You're going to meet individually. Excuse me. You're going to meet individually to kind of like discuss with them what worked and what didn't, and you might not get an opportunity to do it in a group setting.
Yeah, I think it could be worked in, again, if you're doing this with people. I think the end of the, like, we did a lot of, we even did some off camera afterwards, right? I think a lot of the discussion also happens like after the group is over. Maybe somebody hangs out, or as they're packing up their stuff or whatever, like, oh, or is a tough moment tonight, like, how are you doing, those sort of things sometimes too play very much into the unpacking it, I think. But yeah, you could do an additional like checkout debrief at the end. I think I found with some of the games that I've run for people is that like when you're not playing, they're not going to come back for another one. That's like, oh, I'm not here for therapy. I'm here to play a game.
Yeah. There's also this understanding and solution focused therapy, which is a marriage and family therapy model, and that a lot of the work and change happens outside of therapy. It happens outside. So even if you're not having like a full debrief like this at the end, there's going to have been change throughout, in between every group, like Dustin said, maybe after groups. But my question really is, who's testing this theory now? This 12 sessions theory?
I wrote up a proposal, and you guys know this, but the world at large, I published a model based on kind of what some of what they do at the Badana group, and some of kind of like my own idea of timing. And I think I had come up with a 10 session plan as well. Knowing that like we might, I might regret that. I might want it to go longer. I might want it to go shorter, but it seems like 10 or 12 is a practical number. I certainly understand why you, from a drug and alcohol perspective, like 12 it has a lot of significance as a number because of 12-step.
Mm-hmm. I actually wasn't even really considering that, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My mind immediately went there.
Yeah.
12 sessions, 12 steps, not coincidence.
I'm just thinking of how I used to do 12 weeks a group, and then I would like kind of recycle,
and then it would reset. Yeah.
Reset basically, and it would be new people, which I think you could do with this, right? Like we're going to go into year 2 and we're going to play 12 sessions again. Like it would give a chance to like add new players. Maybe somebody stays on who's in the group and they play the same character, but it's like, kind of a reset in some ways. That they're working on a new issue or something, or the theme something different for this next game. You could play a different game or something like that, like we're going to be doing here, and it's going to be something that we carry on and keep doing here. I think we're kind of hitting our stride with like, okay, let's try this 12-week. To answer your question, I guess Lexa, I keep calling you Lexa because it says Lexa on the Zoom call. Kayla is I guess we're gonna keep trying it out and test it out.
So currently in the office, we do about a 3-month check-in with every game. And we run multiple games, multiple things all year long. And I find it having like that 13th like episode, like after about 3 months, checking in and really seeing where we are with our characters and our growth and how we can reflect upon our characters in that time frame. I think it's really beneficial. And you get to see how the play starts to change and the thought process starts to change after that period of time, and giving it some time to breathe and grow, and not like we do reflection at the end of every session, but we don't do a full debrief until about 3 months. So it kind of works out to be about 12 sessions. So I think this is perfect.
I didn't think I was going to have much to say because I don't do groups in the same way, but thinking it from a spiritual direction perspective, I've been doing 6 games with ideally a 1-hour one-on-one for each player every other game. So 3 sessions in between of 6 games. And so 6 is a half of 12, so I could easily make it 12. But it feels to me like a lot of the work goes on in those one-on-one sessions and privately instead of waiting to the end. But I'm rethinking it now.
No, so like that's a good point to have too, because it's something we do in the office as well. As anyone that we have in a group, we usually have as an individual as well, and we debrief through the week about things that may happen. And I think that like that is very beneficial to
hold that thought.
Yeah,
hold that thought. We're gonna let's move that.
Okay.
We'll answer that. There are 3 of us that
I was
can actually personally elaborate further on that point.
Okay.
Do we just want to transition to that? Does anybody want to add anything else to the 12 sessions?
Well, I think one thing to add is that we're all kind of speaking with all due respect, with the exception of Menachem, here, like we're all speaking from a perspective like Menachem, you have looked at some of the theory behind group work.
Oh, I look at
behind
the therapeutic. Yeah, the therapeutic field has lent a lot of information to me.
Yeah, so we've all done kind of a little bit of reading, a little bit of research, or a lot of bit of reading, a lot of bit of research on group theory, and so that we're discussing the minutia of whether it's 10 sessions or 12 sessions. I think it's just important to reinforce that like you want to have a long enough length of time for the group to kind of come together, develop a group identity, and then experience the breaking up of the group and feel a sense of loss.
Yeah.
And Vader.
Yeah, I think it's worked out really well. I'm excited to see how it works in the future as well. I think it really helps with pacing as the GM, also of kind of looking at when you want things to happen. I kind of went with like a natural, like, oh, this seems like a moment now to start like upping things. And I actually looked back, and one thing that could be interesting with this also, and I'll have to look at it perhaps for the next game that I run a little more in depth, is following some of the, like, if anybody knows like screenwriting or novel writing, of the one model that's used is the Save the Cat theory of how you structure plot, basically. And when I look back at it, I was like, oh, I kind of did a lot of this. It's storytelling, right? So it's nice to kind of have a beginning, middle, and end of where you're going with the story. So I kind of have those beats of where I want to go with it. How we get there in between is then where I give the agency to everybody else. So I may try and follow that a little bit more closely as I do it next time, to just kind of keep it in mind and see how that works. But I think there's definitely some parallels there as well. Like take a movie like The Matrix or The Hunger Games or something like that. some of those stories very much follow this kind of progression of what happens and kind of hits these marks. So
I did not know that.
yeah. There's videos on the YouTubes there that you could watch that people talk about the Save the Cat and
There's a book on my
examples.
shelf over here that's called Save the Cat about this exact thing. I wish I could hold it up.
Which one do you have, the screenwriting one or the Save the Cat Writes a Novel?
I think it's Save the Cat Writes a Novel. I'll take a look later.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so there's
Sounds like something I should read for my own dungeon mastering.
I think it does, like, it's helped me structure beats and like when to kind of push things in the story also, to make it exciting, and also think about, well, that false victory or something like that, right? And when to kind of throw that next hook in there to keep the players moving forward in the story. So yeah.
Kayla, what's going on
I
over
missed
there?
something, I feel like, Kayla.
I'm just watching Leia, and,
Oh, okay.
and Lara's like, and I wanted to be like, wrong shoulder.
because I'm not mirrored on my screen.
Right. So let's jump into, I know people really want to talk about this, and speaking of the individual work between sessions, I think some people have done that, communicating with each other and actually talking with their therapists. So I'm going to toss this out there and let y'all take it, but this idea of the therapeutic avatar, and ourself in our characters as well. We've kind of talked a little bit about the self of the therapist and kind of exploring ourselves in some of these characters as we've ended up going through this game. But yeah, as players, have you been able to identify parts of yourself and your characters? And I'm going to leave it at that and let y'all take it away.
I don't know. Go ahead, Lara. You seem to be very handsy over there.
As players, have you been able to identify parts of yourself in your character? Riley is me. It's one of those, like, when I was playing Exodus the last time, our check-in was Manaka Mass, like on a scale of 1 to 10, where's how much of your character is you? Riley is like a 9.5, or a 10. When I created this was the first game I played with you all, and I just like threw out like, okay, fine, I don't want to make a character, I'm going to be me. And it has been a mind fuck, but in the best way. I feel great about it. We get into, there's more questions about like transformation and change, and I made a realization when one of the reasons we're talking on GT Radio this week with Josue and Link and Kayla, like Riley went through this transformation this year of finding herself and believing in herself and doing a new thing, right? Like she had finally felt comfortable with magic at Salem, and then like, oh no, now there's this whole new world and I have to learn this new thing. And by the end of it, she's raising the fucking dead. Like, not just talking to spirits and getting like a couple word answers back. She's raising the dead. And I made that realization with the art that I have been doing. So Lexa and Riley live rent free in my head, and to make them make some money, as not real money, I'm not charging anyone for my art. I throw art out there, and I've been working on art that like I went in a week from stick figures to like full blown moonscapes, shading, like
I thought you
painting,
said bathing for a second.
Bathing. I drew a hand. Hands are so hard to draw, and I was able to draw a hand like perfectly. It has been, I've thrown myself into that and found my confidence and my skill there. And worked through a lot of past relationship trauma through this Lexa Riley storyline. I don't know what Kayla and I created, but it
certainly went somewhere.
It's something, and it's beautiful. Yeah. So there's my answer. Riley is me.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Lexa. Kayla, do you want to go next?
I can go next. I do have things to say.
I also.
I know you do.
Yeah, so many things. Go ahead, please.
Sure. So there are like very few parts of myself in Lexa where I found things kind of showing up for me was recognizing the parts of Lexa that were in people who had harmed me. And it took Lara made a realization at the end of episode 11, and I was like, oh shit. And so we spent a really long time processing together about like relationships and like intimate harm. And then I like sat with it more and was reflecting on one of like my most harmful relationships that I've ever been in, and how positioning a character who plays the harmer, but then turns around and gives the person they've harmed, like it holds themselves accountable and is intentional about the ways in which that they are going to strive to repair that harm, were things that I never got. And so that was really interesting. And I did, in fact, process with not one therapist, but two therapists.
Mm-hmm.
So and that was really great because, to Tim's point, I had, because I am trained in this stuff, and because I, as Laura likes to say, am a lesbian and a therapist, I can't not
We
unpack my
overthink
own
everything.
shit. I had already been processing it and unpacking it. However, being able to sit with my individual therapist, and my regular therapist was, it gave it like that little extra ability for me to really be able to like find myself saying, yeah, like I'm now holding this harm in a much different way. Like this thing in this relationship that happened to me that was really painful and really traumatic and really fucked me up, I used to hold like at a really, really far away. Um, and now I have been able to like bring it closer to myself and really, and then I went and processed it and cleared it in EMDR. So in a way that felt way less stressful than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I think if
Mhm.
you are going to use if you are going to use groups in this way in tabletop like games and really lean into this stuff, you can do it on your own, certainly.
Mhm.
But there's something extra powerful about having a therapist, tacking on.
Mhm. Yeah. One thing you said on GT radio was that you said what you needed to hear, what you wanted to hear. And I was crying to my therapist earlier today saying it was what I needed to
Yeah,
hear and what I wanted to hear.
I know.
And whew, that was a whole, he doesn't talk much. He's an old school guy, but he talked a lot today.
Yeah,
It was he was excited.
I
So
know. It's exciting. I know there's one other person that's talked to their
mhm.
therapist about their character. At
Yes,
least one
Yeah.
other person.
I got one of those old school object relations therapists.
Mhm.
And I did not once talk about my character with her until 2 sessions ago, when I was turning over this idea of like, am I going to kill Roberts? Am I going to keep him alive? And it was very much that doorknob comment. It was like right as we were finishing up, and I was like, oh, hey, so this is interesting. I've got this character. I think I want to kill him because I don't like him. He's an asshole. Do I see myself in my character? My character represents some of the worst aspects of myself. And I did not go into it intentionally doing that. I mean, even the name, I mean, it was a joke. I did, huh? You have to explain that to me, to Neil.
You never, yeah, there's something called shadow work. And you can actually do shadow work in journals as well. And it's about bringing out like those worst parts of yourself, like the darkest parts of yourself, like up to the surface, like exploring them. And
The shadow, yes, that is a Jungian term, right? Yeah. Okay. Remembering, yay. So yeah, I was doing shadow work for sure. I had a hard time showing up. Every Friday I'd be like, I don't want to go to the game. I don't want to be an asshole. Why can't we play Wanderhome? I like my character Wanderhome. It was hard. It was really hard. And I never talked about it with my therapist until the end. And all of a sudden I was looking forward to coming on Fridays. I was like so eager to confront this stuff because I was talking to her about it. But Humperdinck Roberts, it was a joke, like a throwaway. I was like, I'm just going to be the Dread Pirate Roberts because I needed something to like glom onto to create like a fully three-dimensional character. And yet I found myself bringing the swagger like and the false bravado. And finally with my therapist, I kind of mentioned to her, like, I don't like this guy, really want to be rid of him. I'm thinking I'm going to kill him off. It's going to be a really fun moment for storytelling. And she's like, why do you feel the need to self-sabotage even in your game? And I'm like, what? And now I was talking about how, I was the character didn't have romantic interests and only had physical interests. And she's like, well, why are you processing this in the game, but not here with me? I'm like, God damn it. Fine, we can talk about this. Right. And so all of a sudden in therapy, I'm talking about things in a really frank way, in a really frank and forward way that because it's happening to the character and not to me, it makes it easier for me to kind of like say, well, it's my character's decision. I'm not the one that's doing that. Yeah, it gives me an alibi.
It's a nice externalization.
Yeah.
But that's,
I mean, it's called alibi in studies.
Yeah.
It's just my character.
Yeah. I refer to it as externalization because I conceptualize a lot of the game, like storytelling in the games that we play, as like a piece of narrative work, and like the narratives that we want to share about ourselves. And in order to address those narratives, we have to externalize them first.
And I think in narrative therapy, the term they use is a therapeutic avatar, right? And that thing that's just a step away, so that we can grapple with these emotions that maybe we don't want to deal with ourselves, right? And so all of a sudden, like, I'm telling her about my character in this game, and I'm really excited to start talking about the character in the other game in Wanderhome, where I'm trying to like challenge myself to do some different things, whole different conversation, right? But Roberts is hard to play for me. Roberts is a hard person to get into because it takes me back to a place where I didn't like myself at all. And it's challenging to face that, and helpful for me to like force myself to like work on letting go of that. But yeah, if I wasn't, this was much harder to do when I wasn't doing work in my individual therapy. So Tim, going back to like where your question or where your comment was, right? I think it's always important to couple group work with individual work, but especially when we're doing stuff like this, where we're going to insert, intentionally or not, ourselves on some level, or our experiences on some level, into the characters. Just what's going to happen.
My individual therapist, when I explained it to her, she said, this is some of the most integrative work I've ever heard described. She's like, you're doing like really integrative work here. And then said, I think you sold me on tabletop games. Yeah. Yeah, like just watching her, like as I was explaining it, and watching my individual therapist, who is a trained narrative therapist and trained in EMDR, but she's not my EMDR therapist. She, like, her face, like the excitement and like her own, like, because I sit there as somebody who is trained as a therapist, and so like I can see like her part of her brain that was like,
Just clicked.
yeah, and she's like, holy, like, right, I could see like her like actual professional brain like kind of explode a little bit and be like, and like get like kind of excited about like the idea that just like the integrative work, right? And when we can integrate our stories back into ourselves, man, that's the whole point. That's the whole reason.
Mm-hmm.
Really, if you're looking for a reason to use tabletop role-playing games in an intentional way, just watch the entirety of Yalecapdes Year 1. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just
Basically.
the whole, yeah. I couldn't really, I mean, there's 3 of us. I don't know if anyone else, I haven't really talked, we can hear from everyone else, but 3 of 7's not, that's pretty good.
Anyone else unpacking some shit in
Yeah,
therapy?
anyone else?
Anyone else making art, talking constantly about this game, or thinking constantly about this game? There we go. There
Tim's
we
always
go.
making art over
Oh,
there.
that is cool.
I played
Yeah,
a game
I'm-
with Tim, and he takes notes as art, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not talking about this game constantly, or I've got other stuff to do. But I do feel like I'm doing some work with Eliza, and it's been incredible to see those parts of me. In school, I was definitely a teacher's pet, not to the extent of Eliza, because I like to dramatize it up all the time. So, Eliza's an exaggeration, I think, of me when I was in school. But there are, other parts of her that are just like, that's kind of, she's definitely more loyal to her friends than I think I was at that point. And with this arc that she's on, it was difficult for me to figure it out, because I did have a strong issue with perfectionism when I went into college, and I worked through that by writing in my journal and dancing and praying and doing some therapy and reflecting and talking to people and doing a lot of self-reflection. And I started to break that apart in kind of like in my own mind and figure those pieces out for myself. And I asked myself, okay, what if I didn't do that? Where would I have gone? What would have been that step? Where would that place have gone? And I just kind of like explored like different places. And then my husband actually mentioned like, oh, well, you could be goth. And I was like, oh, wow. You know what? I've always admired others that like dress like that and live their life like that. And for some reason, I just thought, yeah, I'm not, I can't go there. And so I thought, well, why not? Why not try it out? Why not explore it? And so I feel like, because Tennille didn't get her goth phase, Eliza's gonna get her goth phase, and I'm just going to like live through her vicariously and just kind of explore it and see kind of how it goes. And and I think in my head, some of that goth persona is about a certain type of level of assertiveness, a certain type of level of confidence that's like verbalized or sometimes not verbalized. And that's definitely something that definitely connects to what's going on with me in my current life, as a leader, someone who's promoted recently, in my current work, and as a businesswoman. So that's been a wonderful thing. So there's strands. But yeah, it's been it's been a wonderful experience being able to explore that, and I'm looking forward to trying it out. Like this whole get up, like I've only tried putting makeup on like literally like 4 times in my life. No one has ever taught me how to put on makeup. I was, partially raised by my mom, who's a lesbian, who doesn't wear any makeup, doesn't wear any, girly type clothes or anything like that. So didn't really have that model in my life. So now I'm just figuring out, trying it out, and seeing what happens. Tim, did you have something to say for yourself?
So Calvin's a strange character for me. Like I do play a lot of like comedic characters, and I guess like there is a little bit of that in me. There is
Play a lot of
that
furry
that part of
characters
me
too.
where what was that?
You play a lot of furry characters also. Can we point that out too?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't have a furry kink or anything, but I do play a lot of furry characters for some reason.
Man, this is a safe space.
Thank you.
Nobody else is watching us right now.
So
Mm-mm.
I think there's a lot of that in me. Whenever I feel there's some tension, I try to add some comedy into it to break the tension. Like that is definitely in me. But as in like self work, I really haven't done that much with Calvin. I think the one thing that I connect the most with Calvin is the exploration of like who I am. And I feel like I do that a lot. I do visit myself again often and say like, who am I right now? And who was I then? I do reflect on that a lot. And I think I am going through a little bit with Calvin currently.
I'm really looking forward to you playing a not comedic character.
Me too.
Maybe, maybe in a few games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would be fantastic. I've never even seen Tim in a non-comedic character, so
maybe when we play Court of Blades, who knows?
Yeah, throw me in a dark setting. I like dark
I'm-
settings as well.
I'm also really, really curious to hear Menachem talk about the father piece of Jelly's whole
Yeah.
character.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm curious.
So it's
too.
interesting because my character now is half mine, half NPC. Because I created a different character for the first few sessions that just turned out to be unplayable. And I came up with an idea, and then I discussed it with Dustin. I said, "Oh, I had this character you can combine this with." So there's a bit of randomness where I didn't choose a lot about my character, which I think has a potential for great therapeutic or spiritual value to happen, because you can furthermore say, that's not me, right? This is a random character that was assigned to me in some way. But so far, I don't think there's been much. But I think with some of the hooks we've set up for season 2, there's potential, right? Because being a parent is like the best thing I ever done in my life and the most important thing in my life. And I've put a lot of thought into, my father passed 4 years ago now. And we had a complex relationship, as all parents did. And, so there's a lot to potentially can come up in a kind of a father-son relationship as we search my father, as I find him, or as I have contact with him, however that plays out. So I'm not sure, but the potential there, the pieces are there that could send me to my therapist. We'll see.
What about what was it, last week? Yeah, it was last week. You linked up to how Jelly responded and how you would respond to. Sorry, I'm being a therapist for a second. I feel safe doing this because you're my friend. Is this okay?
Go ahead.
Can I challenge you? Is that okay? You said that Jelly was perturbed by everyone kind of like going off plan. And you related that in our checkout to how like you would have also found that frustrating and difficult to deal with. And you probably would have responded as Jelly had responded. So it might not be sending you to your therapist, but that's self-reflection, that experimenting with how you're responding to something and reflecting on it. That's the goal.
I'm curious as to where similarities and differences develop with me and Tristan. There might be some issues around manifesting yourself, which I feel like I've a lot of intention into. And in some ways, I feel like I didn't come to this work until my late 40s, just several years ago. And it's like, well, that feels late in a way, but in other ways, it feels like right on time. So we'll see. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for everyone. I'm happy to share a couple of my thoughts briefly on the world and the story hooks and the world building, but do any of y'all have any questions for me about any of the like NPCs or the characters or any of the plot hooks or anything that like overarching themes maybe that you noticed?
Is there, in fact, magic in Pepe's pizza?
I don't think we're gonna find that out.
Scott, I think you know more than anyone else. Well, like, you mean literally, like the actual pizza?
In your world? I mean, I remember the Pepe's pizza that I had.
I
right
believe
after
it's
I
magic.
graduated culinary school.
And I think the captain said that there's actual magical herbs like they use.
Actually, I think you did. I think you did.
I think I slipped that in there.
Yeah.
That it's the herbs in the sauce that are actual magical herbs that make it so delicious. So sure. It is pizza is a fantastic, it might be the best food of all time.
I don't know. I don't want to know anything because I really don't mind the ways that you tell your story.
Okay.
I really enjoyed having a game after game.
Yeah, I do too. A
With
lot.
a lot of the not knowing pieces.
Yeah.
I will say this much, and not any spoilers, but I mean just kind of some of the overarching things. Like I've really been thinking about, and I guess maybe for personal growth of me, and some of y'all know this, is that I've been looking at getting more involved in my community, and trying to impact change in my local community, in my town, starting in my town, and getting involved in some ways. It's really been something that I looked at since the Black Lives Matter protests of, well, how can I, as a cis straight white man, really affect change and be trying to do some of those things while uplifting other people also, right? And so I've tried to get involved in my community and on committees. I'm very fortunate that I'm part of a group that has the ability to write monies for grants in our town. A great opportunity that we got, and really looking at what we do with the, where we kind of distribute some of those things. So some of those things have kind of come up for me of like, this idea at some point started happening in my head of like, the victors write, like the victors write the story, right? And we see this kind of like history in school is taught by those who won, right? Like, it's the settlers ultimately in America, and like that's the history and the traditions that are passed down a lot of times, and the kind of cultural assimilation that happens also as a result of traditions that get lost sometimes too. So a lot of those things have been in my head lately. And that's kind of something like, why do these societies, or why do these people have power? Because they say, and that's like right from the beginning, I kind of put that in of like, they can take your magic away if they don't like what you do, basically. And it's like, why the heck does anyone have that power? Like, why do they have the power to make people forget, or like kind of write history, write things the way that they want to? So part of this was kind of trying, how can we subvert, like, is that right? Is that correct? How, like, what if somebody decides they want to subvert it? The captain is also a bit of a white savior as well. There are some themes of that too, potentially, right?
You never said the captain was white.
I guess I didn't. Maybe I thought it in my head. So, but like, here's another dude coming in and saying like, and maybe that's my own stuff as well. Like, why do I, like, I want to make things better, but like, how can I do that in a way that still uplifts other people and other voices, right? I think that's something that I'm struggling with, still trying to figure out, and feeling like I'm constantly screwing it up, but again, figuring it out as I go. So as I'm just kind of talking with a bunch of therapists right now about this, I'm like, wow, maybe there's
I
more of
mean,
me in this than I
yeah,
realized.
there's a lot there.
So
we I mean, there's a lot there, just not about like yourself, just about like societal
yeah,
thoughts, right? Like it is for example, reading books and stuff, right? Like for example, Hermione, the assumption has always been that she's white, which is why they had such a people lost their minds when a black actor was cast in the play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, right, but because that's our like societal norm, like our default is to assume
yeah.
they're white, but
I-
then you also have layers, so of
it's
like
Yeah.
wanting, maybe you want to explore those things, Dustin, like the idea of
Yeah.
white saviors and things like that.
Well, and I think that's also partially for me, like giving more of that control to everybody here. Is like, okay, I'm gonna set, but like you tell the story, you tell me what it looks like. One of my things is like the captain came to you and was like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing and I'm gonna leave. However you wanna, like, whatever happens afterwards is up to everybody here. And that was kind of part of it, is basically me saying like, oh yeah, like I want everybody else to decide. I don't want to be the GM deciding, oh, this is how it is now. So
I think that challenge of kind of whether it's that we default into thinking that someone is like us, or whether someone is the majority population when we're reading something or when we're imagining something. Menachem recommended a series of books to me a couple years ago, and I finally sat down and read them. The Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, and like, there's this odd,
Great books.
great books, but there's this odd, as a cisgender white guy, like there's this automatic assumption in my head that I had to work with and break as I was reading these books, because of like what I was imagining, and then I would have to like go back and reread descriptions of people to really clarify in my head, like, who is this person physically?
And I know we have to get to our wrap up, our last questions, but the whole thing of this discussion of Dustin is a little about what's the therapeutic spiritual benefit of game mastering? What work can you do as the game master? Just to plant seeds for later.
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. I do bring a lot of myself into it in a lot of ways. I've done shared some rituals with everyone of burning plants at the beginning, bringing some of the things that I really like as far as like herbalism and spiritualism, the spiritual aspects uh, of connecting with nature and things like that, into some of the world building of how the magic system works. Also, I think magic systems in general leave a lot to be explored around spirituality, and this idea of a power greater than ourselves, right, as they would say in AA. But yeah, for me, like, my higher power is in connecting with nature, and how it's, this idea that the sun rises and the sun sets every day, no matter what happens in my life. I'm not going to change that anymore than I'm going to change what direction the toilet flushes down the bowl, right? These are things that are forces greater than myself that I kind of just have to work with, and it also keeps me grounded. So I think I brought some of that into the game in some ways too, as the game master, thinking about some of those things. I don't know if I answered the question. I feel like I started rambling.
Well,
It wasn't a question, it was just something to point out, to think about for
Yeah.
later times.
yeah.
Yeah,
Some
it is. It's kind of interesting.
Things for us to think about as we start playing more GM games and start to incorporate more of those. Thank you, Menachem.
So do we want to wrap things up here then? Does anybody want to add anything else? It's getting rather late.
Yeah, I had a blast. It was probably one of my favorite games I've ever played.
You all want to come back to this, right? We're so excited to come
Oh,
back.
yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
Kayla and I are like gonna be on our own thing in the in-between times. So
There's already
Yeah.
plans of like stuff happening in between
Yeah,
in
yeah.
character as well. So
Yeah.
Tim messaged me and was like, we have to talk about lashes.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, I was like, that's ominous, dude. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Listen,
there?
I spammed Lara the other day and was like, okay, here are a bunch of games. Which one can we play?
all of them, Kayla, all of them. We have to find
As
the one
Riley
that fits
and
right.
Lexa.
Yeah. Yep.
I really want the two of you to play Starcross together as your characters.
Yeah, I know. That one
Mm.
actually would be a ton of fun. I'll figure out the mechanics.
All right. Well, we will be coming back to these characters and to the magical Yale setting as well in September of 2022. So we're gonna have a couple of games in between. We've got a few things planned out at this point. There's already been talks about we need a one shot in between because people don't want to wait that long.
Yeah, that was Monaco.
Summer vacation, one
Yes.
shot.
Summer
Yeah.
vacation, one shot.
We're not good at one shots though.
But it's not a real one shot.
Right, yeah.
Because the characters are already developed
It's just
and everything.
a
It's just
snippet of the summer.
It's an hour. It's a
would
one
be
session of
easier to do.
gameplay.
I just feel like there's gonna be another part or something.
I don't, in what I've experienced with this group, I question whether we could successfully limit ourselves to a single session, because there's always
Except
and then and yeah, there's always yes ands. They're like 4 or 5. Dustin will be like, and we're done for the night. Yes, and
It happens all the time.
Speaking of being done for the night.
Yep. On that note,
Last thoughts. What I think the question that's been presented is one thing you're looking forward to happening in year 2. Dustin, you would be first technically, right?
Dustin.
Oh, I'd be first. I've got some. Listen, I have been. Something happened in my brain as I was watching a video breaking down like a Marvel show, and I think maybe like the multiverse is seeping into my head, as well with all of the Marvel shows and everything. So
God.
I don't know what's gonna happen yet. I haven't gotten that far, but I am looking forward to blowing the magic system open further.
Sounds like fun. I am looking forward to Lexa and Riley, but also the Wastelands. I am very intrigued by possibly adventuring there with Tristan and what kind of inanimate objects Lexa will talk to.
I am looking forward to Lexa and Riley not being quite as fraught, not quite as heartbroken. I'm looking forward to a little bit of joy, maybe. That's it.
I'm looking forward to a few things. I'm looking forward to bring magical brownies to the wasteland. I'm on a serious note. I'm looking forward to exploring how Calvin changes through the next semester.
I am looking forward to just exploring Eliza being goth and trying out something new and seeing how that impacts the other relationships, or if it impacts that at all.
I am looking forward to continuing to develop my British accent. I think it needs more work.
Love it.
And Robert's being more palatable headspace for me to get into, because that was hard past couple months. I want him to be less of an asshole. That'd be great. Take us home, buddy.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to finding my dad. But what I think about, what I'm excited about, is Tristan's development, his coming out, his growth, trajectory that he's on, from cocky to wasteland and trauma to recluse to confident, and where's that going? I'm really excited about that arc that he's on.
All those things and more.
I'm excited to.
Can we explore Tristan's familiar?
Oh yeah. The cube.
Like I had to throw it in there.
That's right. You have a little gelatinous cube.
But wait though, did you have the gelatinous cube before the Wastelands or after?
In Wastelands.
Yeah, it came from
Yeah.
the Wastelands with
So-
you.
So what was your familiar before?
Yeah,
the
what was your
Wastelands?
familiar before? Because I have to correct this now.
I don't know. I was thinking about that, wondering what it was. So maybe we'll find out.
I have to make some corrections.
So
now.
many what ifs. And does that familiar still exist? I have so many questions.
So do I. Okay. Speaking of that, one last thing here.
One more yes and. Just one more yes and.
Exploration. Not Lexa. Lashes what is Lashes'
Real name?
real name and familiar? And what happened to that familiar?
Wait, do you have a familiar then? If Lashes was your familiar.
Yes. So what happened to that one as well?
Oh my God.
I can't.
All right.
Wait,
I think I just figured out our summer one shot.
Wait, what's Riley's?
What happened
I
to the
forgot
animals?
what's Riley's familiar.
It's just all what the
A ferret
familiars
named
do when you
Wobbles?
guys aren't around.
Oh God, this is amazing. All right, this is great.
Thanks, everybody.
This is
See
All
some
right.
of you Sunday, 3 p.m. Central for Exodus.
There you go.
And we will be off next week.
here.
We are taking a break in between games, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. There's a date for that. Let me
The
see.
25th.
The 25th. Yeah, for
Yep.
our next game, where we start kind of a return to Wanderhome. As we put it on pause while we stuck with just one game for a little while. So yeah, exciting. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. And we're really grateful to have you. Thank you to all of these wonderful players who have done way more with this world than I could have imagined. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Game
night.
Master. Good night.
Right.